Catalunya is famous for high concentration of lot of climbing, of lot of rock. But there are some places which are flat and you would never expect any climbing there. Just endless, dry fields. But even there, you can be surprised that you can get some decent climbing. Some years ago, Daniel Andrada found this cave in the middle of nowhere. It's called Cova de Juncosa. And the king line of this cave is a 9A, first ascended by Dani itself, called Real Tierra de Nadie, the no man's land. When I first saw the cave some years ago, I wasn't really that inspired to come back and climb, because it looks pretty much like a mud. It looks very soft and fragile. But in reality, it's so much more solid. It's something between limestone, maybe a little bit of sandstone, a little bit of conglomerate, and it offers pretty interesting climbing on a variety of holds like pockets, tufas, and some really cool slopers. After checking out the moves, which took me quite a lot of time, like the climbing is pretty tricky out in the roof with a lot of knee bars, heel hooks, toe hooks, foot jams. Despite being almost horizontal roof, I would say the climbing is pretty technical. Definitely a different kind of technique than climbing on a vertical wall, but still, just being strong is not enough to be able to climb this route. Some of the hardest moves on the whole route, I would say, are straight at the beginning. It's a lot of tensiony moves, some weird kind of body positions, compression power, and it took me definitely a lot of time to figure out the best way. But I couldn't find any other beta than trying to hold this pretty desperate swing, which was pretty insecure. Right after you do this massive swing, there's a good rest and you can recover. As you can see, the route never really goes very high above the ground. And the belayer has to be very, very careful to not drop you straight to the ground. But at the same time, there has to be always a little bit of slack. Because the nature of the climbing is that you just sometimes jump, you cut loose and take a lot of swing. But if the belayer doesn't give you enough slack, it could stop the swing, and then, in my point of view, in the ethical point of view, the ascent doesn't count. There's one more thing that is definitely different to when Daniel Andrada made the first ascent, because it was already back in 2009 when the use of knee pads wasn't really that much widespread. And some of these knee bars that with modern knee pads you're able to release the hands and make a total no-hand rest. I don't think it's really possible if you're not wearing knee pads. So from a pretty difficult 9A, I would say the route went down to maybe a little bit softer 9A. This part is, in my point of view, maybe the crux, the linking crux of the whole route. It has a lot of physical moves, some tricks, big moves on relatively good holds. You're definitely running out of power until you place this another knee bar. Not the most comfortable knee bar. I was a little bit afraid that I could fall off hanging upside down. Yet you definitely need to get some juice back, because the top out is by no means easy. For climbing this route, I decided to go for the Solution Comp Woman shoes because there are lots of toe jams in kind of like a narrow hole, and due to the fact that the Solution Comps are not as aggressively downturn as a normal Solution, and compared to the Solution Men are just a little bit softer, and having softer shoes for this kind of climbing would be better. Here you make a big move into this hole, which is very deep, but on the outside it's actually quite a bad sloper. And the trick is to just dig deep with your feet, lock the foot inside the hole, and thanks to that, even though you're not holding onto good holds, it's a little bit of a rest. This top out continues to be quite challenging with some spicy moves, and this very last kind of a mental thing where it would be kind of a dump to blow it, but I believe that it's still possible. Always nice to top out the route all the way to the top. During this pretty humid day, I actually climbed the 2 9As because this route has 2 different variations. And they are completely the same all the way to the last knee bar. And I would say they're both equally hard. If you go straight up, it's just shorter. The single moves might be more difficult. When you go to the left, it's longer, it's more pumpy, and in my point of view, equally hard, and I would say equally logical. You know, in these caves, it's kind of difficult to say which line is the most straight, which one is the most logical, because the climbing is so much 3D. And so I would say it just makes sense to climb both of these variations. The cool thing about these 2 routes that you can really go all the way to the top and top out on a really nice flat summit.